Okay, let's go live now to Joe Oltmann, host of the Conservative Daily podcast. Joe, Anthony Blinken's trip occurred shortly after Sergei Lavrov was warmly welcomed by several African countries. What's your take on that timing?
Well, I think that he is reaping the product of decades of deceit and manipulation by the U.S. apparatus, and they're trying to basically measure the effects of that visit and whether or not they're going to have to do any damage control going into the future, and what kind of, if any, appetite African nations have for any U.S. promises that they're going to make today that they will not fulfill tomorrow.
Yeah, and Blinken has also claimed that the U.S. will not dictate Africa's choices. However, he went on to accuse Russia of exploiting the instability in Africa. Do you think that the U.S. will actually respect any foreign policy choices that these African countries make?
You know, I got to tell you, I spent a lot of time in the Middle East and Africa, and I don't think that the U.S. has ever respected the sovereignty of other nations. And when they talk about destabilization, they can look no further than themselves. And the sad part about what the U.S. says is it's just a bunch of rhetoric. And look, I'm an American, and I'm proud to be an American, but the apparatus within the U.S. government has long been a destabilizing force and almost putting Africa in a place where they can't grow, they can't excel at the same rate that other countries across the world are growing, and that has a lot more to do with their natural resources and how they can get access to those resources. So no, I don't believe they respect the sovereignty of any decisions that they make, and I'm actually fearful that it's going to become a tug of war, and the people of those African nations, 54 nations, are the ones that are going to suffer.
Right. And also, in its new strategy for sub-Saharan Africa, the White House has failed to mention its European allies. Do you think the U.S. will take into account their interests, or will they ignore them?
You know, the U.S. Foreign policy has long been the rabid dog that's your friend, that is your friend until it's not your friend. And that goes for people in the United States as well. It's not just a problem for foreign nations. So no, I don't think that they're going to put any of their interest. And when you talk about interests, you have to be very, very specific about the interests that they're going to represent. If not their partners their European partners, it may be that they will, represent the interests of the select few that happen to live in those areas or domicile in those areas. But even the American people are left behind by the decisions made by this bloated government in the United States.
And to that point, the White House also blames Russia and China for global instability, right? So to what extent is the U.S. able to make such accusations?
I don't think they can. We can actually look at a country called Sudan, and many people that listen to your station understand what happened in Sudan. There was a referendum vote. They split the country in half, and in between that country was the Abyei district, which is the oil-rich district. And Sudan was long a partner of the United States until President al-Bashir stood up to U.S. interests and said, no, we're not going to do that. And so the chaos and instability that ensued and the propaganda that was spread across the globe, and obviously the ICC indictments that were proven to be false, and they just kept their finger on it. So any instability that we've seen thus far has typically been at the hands of U.S. interests, CIA interests, FBI, I would say not FBI, but shadow interests. And so the chaos that's been created in those nations has largely been a part of the Western strategy in order to take natural resources.
And do you think, based on what you've seen, that Blinken's visit to South Africa will to affect Pretoria's relations with its BRIC partners, do you think it's going to affect that, including Russia and China?
No, I actually think that the BRICS partnership is going to grow, and you're going to end up seeing it. BRICS represents obviously the names of the different partner nations. I think it's going to grow to an alphabet. And one of the things that I've been just gritting my teeth going, this cannot happen, is that I think for the first time in history, the U.S. is going to have to come to roost with all the decisions they made up to this point. And the African nation, especially South Africa, does not trust the United States. Many nations don't trust the United States. So what's going to happen throughout all this, if I had to guess, is that you'll have certain partner nations that stand on the side of the United States, and then you're going to have a large group that starts to migrate towards supporting China, Russia, and some of the other countries that are represented in the BRICS environment.
In that respect, then, what do you think the U.S. strategy will be for Africa in terms of considering China's growing influence as well?
Well, China's influence over Russia has been there for a long time. The thing about China that people fail to realize is that China's always had an equally yoked opportunity for what is in their interest and what they want to give to the people in the environment that they're trying to help. And so it's they've been there for decades. They've done things like build roads, infrastructure, things the United States has failed to do. And so I don't think that the influence that China has, I think that the people of Africa are very grateful for that. And if you look just past all of the technological advancements and the things that China's done individually for different nations and for the continent of Africa, I think that the U.S. is going to have a hard time based on the fact that they've failed to deliver on any promises for nearly decades, cutting through and pulling China out of their partnerships with many of those nations.
So when it comes to South Africa's partnership with BRICS countries, is there anything that the United States can offer, do you think, as an alternative to that?
I think that individually, you'll see the United States start offering different incentives to individuals and seeing if they can use money or power or some of the, they have a greed metrics that they use to influence individual characters. But I think as a whole, I think the country has decided that they're going to move past the United States and recognizing that they just have never delivered, and the people in power within the United States have soundly not delivered for the American people either. And so I don't think anything the United States does right now will be seen as anything other than grandstanding and making empty promises that they will near into the future not be able to deliver on.
Joe Oltmann, host of the Conservative Daily podcast. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. God bless you.